Okay, let's get started. Happy Tuesday, everyone. My name is Adam Greco, and I'm with Search Discovery, and I'll be acting as our moderator here for our SDEC session. For those of you who are new to the SDEC, we are a free educational community providing weekly webinars around topics related to digital analytics and digital marketing and topics like that. If you are not yet a member of the SDEC, you can join for free, and I'll be putting information in the chat on how to join. And some of the benefits of joining is that you can join our Slack group where you can see recordings of almost 60 of the past webinars that we have on a wide range of topics. If you have questions about the webinar or the SDEC, you can hit me up on the chat and I'll try to help. If you have any technical issues or just want to learn more about the SDEC, you can privately ping me, Adam Greco. If you have questions for our presenter, Alan, please use the Zoom Q&A, and that will be an easier way for us to address those questions at the end of the session. So once again, questions are more technical nature, use the chat. Questions for Alan, use the Zoom Q&A. And I would highly encourage you all to ping me if you are having problems joining this Slack group. I know some of you have run into problems where your company blocks Slack, but we have some kind of cool workarounds that we figured out. So feel free to contact me and I'll put the contact information in the chat because we do have about a third of the group is not in the Slack group and missing out. So that's all the preamble I will give. And now I'm going to hand it off to Alan Hyman, who's going to talk to us about data management and data governance. Alan, welcome, and they are all yours.
Well, thank you very much, Adam. I really appreciate all the introduction. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Alan Hyman. I'm data solutions architect at Search Discovery. I work with a team to help our clients create, run, and maintain their data management and data governance programs. In marketing departments in a lot of different industries, in financial services, manufacturing, healthcare, transportation, and hospitality. So what I want to cover today is a discussion about what is data governance, why it's important, of course. But then I want to leave with you with some examples and 5 things that you can do when the seminar ends that you can actually run and do today to help you get started if your companies do not have a data management, data governance program. All right, so let's get to it. So data is growing exponentially, and it increases every year. And the question is that how do we questions that we have is like, how do we use the data? How do we manage this deluge of data? Then what data do we use? What is the accuracy? And how do we improve on this? And the answer is proper data governance. So proper data governance is the key. So I recently attended the Gartner Data Analytics Summit virtually this year, and I got this quote from them about 80% of organizations are seeking to scale their digital businesses, but they will fail because they don't take proper modern approach to data analytics and governance. So it is really very important that we, if we haven't done so now, that we create these programs, in our companies in order to make sure that we, we are, doing our best to scale our data assets. So what is data management and governance? So data management, or sometimes I call DG, talks about the goals and the policies and procedures, that define, the authority, control, and access of data in your organization, okay? And data management is the implementation of these processes and of the goals that data management sets. Now, what is really their differences? Well, they share the same things. They really want to establish good data quality. They want to establish what is this, source of truth of data in your organization, and who what are the roles of the people that are needed to be involved in this? And also, what is the standardization we can have so we have some consistency with our data in organizations? So when talking about the roles, for, data governance, usually when I think of data governance, I think of strategy. They are the high level strategy and they set the tone, for in your data governance program. For data management is the implementation. So data governance sets a strategy and the direction, and data management does the task and implementation of governance in the organizations. And such things, and we'll go through and we'll get a little bit more deeper into this to tell you exactly, what are these different elements and what exactly do they take care of. So what I'd like to do is do a poll to see what is data management and governance programs are in effect today in your organization. Do you have a program today? Um, so if you can answer, if you do have a program today, answer yes. If you don't, answer no. If you don't know, answer I don't know. So let's see. I'm going to give a few minutes for people to put in their poll answers. Excellent. All right. So we have basically almost it's like a split in some way. 34%, 34 people, 47% say yes that they have a data management and data governance program, but that the rest, over 50% say that they don't. So this is an issue today, that needs to be addressed. If you don't have a data management or data governance program today, you really should have one. And we'll go through and discuss more of these details. So what would be a structure of data management and governance? So data governance would handle a lot of the communication, escalation, setting the goals, again, the strategy, approvals of process, creating a charter, and discussing who is going to do what. Data management, on the other hand, will be doing the due diligence of creating these artifacts, such as standards and policies, data validation strategy, data quality, how are your dashboards can be maintained, in your platforms. And we'll talk a little bit more about platform governance as well. Also, what do we need a data dictionary or not? What do we do about naming conventions? We'll go into more about these in a little bit of detail here. But, in talking about platform governance, what is platform governance? So in a lot of companies, we have different platforms that we manage. So they could be the analytics platforms, and they also could be the BI platforms that we manage. So good examples are Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics, Microsoft Power BI, if you're using Datorama, or if you're using Tableau. So there comes a point where, you need to think about, okay, well, do I need to manage these tools? Okay, and how do they relate to my data governance program? So you start asking, if you're starting to ask certain questions like, wait a minute, I have inconsistent dimensions, I'm my naming conventions for both, for let's say the taxonomies for the campaigns that I have are not consistent, across platforms. When it comes to the analytics platforms, if is my security and my access being maintained? For some examples, we have some clients that are in pharmaceutical industry where they have to be concerned about PHI information. Does your industry need to be consider this? And thus, does this portion of needs to be added to your platform governance program? Also, what about data quality as well? Do people trust the data? Has they trusted, but the trust in the data has waned? Are there any controls that need to have over the data as well? Also, one thing that's a lot of times left out about, let's say, for example, business intelligence programs is engagement. You know, how are people using the dashboards that we created? How are, what groups of people and how are they using the dashboards we created? Are they logging into the BI tool? Organizations have spent countless amount of dollars in implementing business intelligence tools, different packages. A lot of organizations have multiple tools in their organizations. But what is the engagement? Are people educated in using these tools? And I kind of use the example measurement like, you know, if no one's using the dashboard at their meetings, are they really using these dashboards at all? Or are they just going back to using regular presentations? So, and there are a lot of organizations that talk about data management and governance and platform governance. There's a body of knowledge called the Data Management PMBOK as well. MIT has discussed data management governance and platform governance. But what does it really have to deal with when we talk about it? Well, it has to deal with people, process, and technology. Who are the people that are in your organization using the data, and how are they using it? What are the processes that are in place? Do I have processes for proper data validation and data quality? And then, do these processes lead me for better ROI in the long run? Do I need to be concerned about GDPR? Do I need to be concerned about churn, customer churn? Do I have to be concerned with loss of market share? So also from a technology standpoint, I gave the example before about, pharmaceutical or the healthcare industry, where you may have to be concerned with personal identifiable information as well. And, in today with the changing landscape of browsers, you also have to be concerned with privacy as well. So with all that, where do you start? That seems like that's a lot. That's a lot here. So what I'd like to give to you is 5 steps for a sustainable program. And I underline the word here, sustainable, because this is not, and I'll come to this too. This is not something that, you'll be able to complete in an afternoon. And yes, I have a data management and governance program. No, this is something that's for the long term that needs to be maintained. So what are these steps that you could start off with? Well, first thing I would do is what is the landscape that I have? So data governance should review what are the team member roles. So 1 and 2 is very strategic. So what are the team member roles? What team members do I need in these roles? What are they going to do, and what are they going to tackle? You should definitely create a charter, which just, and we'll go into this a little bit more, but, just to describe what is the boundaries of, the Data Governance Council. You should be conducting a data quality assessment, and I'll show you how to do that soon as well. And then there's creating SOPs and having a roadmap for success. And one of the things about this too is that this is, you're going to be repeating this over and over again. Usually the roadmaps that we set up for clients will be for a year at a time. And then at the end, we do a assessment of our goals and where were we at that time. So let's start with team member roles. What are the team member roles that I should be concerned with? Well, I should be really concerned with these 5. Who's my sponsor? Who's the person championing, these data assets? Is it the analytics group? Is the head of marketing for my group? Who's the champion here for this? Defining what is the data governance council? This is the group that is supporting the data strategy of the organization, and this group needs to align with the data governance and data management tasks. Who's going to be the data steward? this is kind of like the enforcing, the practice, and the adoption. So the chief data steward, the business data steward, and technical data steward will usually be part of the data management team, doing the day-to-day support of the program in itself. And then there's the tools that you can use in order to outline what are people's responsibilities. And you may have seen this before, but this is a really excellent exercise to do, is a RACI, is to outline who's responsible, accountable, can be consulted or informed. Right here on the left side, we have the list of different kinds of tasks that may be performed by different groups. And then on the top, we have the different roles. And then the middle, we have what is their assigned sort of level of responsibility? Are the ones who are actually kind of planning these initiatives? Are these ones who are accountable? Who do you need to consult? And just who needs to be informed, by these initiatives? Okay. So this is a great tool that you should leverage, and we'll also have a reference in the appendix so that you can take a look and perform this exercise as well. The next item for step 2 is taking a look at creating a charter. So you might ask, well, what do I need a charter for? Well, this sets up the boundaries and what are the expectations. And from an organizational behavior perspective, it's really good to have, okay, well, we're going to have regular meetings. This is what's going to be our scope and our strategy for the year. And this is so that everybody can be on the same page with what we are doing with our program. For the data quality assessment, well, this has to do with if you're going to manage something, you really need to know what you're going to manage. So we'll talk a little bit more about the steps here on what it is. But for example, if I've run some of these data quality assessments for organizations, and you may say, well, oh, I know exactly what my data assets are. Well, you may think that you do. Unfortunately, though, the statement that I often get when I run these sessions is, I did not know about that. There's all these like epiphany moments that people have that, wow, I didn't know we actually have that data. I thought we needed to get that data. Or, wow, I have this data. I know this other group that can use that data. So we can then leverage that asset in multiple situations and multiple use cases. So how do I do that? Well, what you need to do is perform an inventory of your systems, sources, and feeds. So your systems and sources would be anything that would be feeding into either your reporting or your BI tool, such as, if I have like, web analytics, that would definitely, from Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics, that would be a source as well. Do I have Salesforce data? Salesforce, am I getting it from Marketing Cloud? Am I, where am I getting this data from? Am I getting it from, am I getting it directly from Salesforce, or is it going through an intermediary such as a data warehouse? Such as where those business rules are probably maybe taken care of in the data warehouse. That's important to know so that you know where the data is coming from, and also how I can get further data in the future. Also, do I need to create a data dictionary that basically tells me, okay, well, not only just what the name of the data is, but also where's the data from, how frequently does it get updated, and also um, you know you know what is it? What is its definition as well? One of the other things that we do for a data quality assessment and create a risk assessment, kind of outlining different businesses have different risks in businesses. I kind of talked about PII data. That is also one of the risks that some organizations have. It will be very much dependent on the industry that you're in, on what your specific risks will be, and also the kind of business that you have as well. Next step is creating SOPs. And by SOPs, I refer to as standard operating procedures. These are, not like, large documents, but these should be probably no more than maybe 3 pages that describe, okay, what are my security and access protocols to my BI tool, to my platforms? What do I do when people are terminated in my organization? Do they still have access? I can't tell you how many times I've heard from clients where, oh, my Google Analytics container was just deleted. Luckily they were able to restore it, but in some situation it was deleted by a disgruntled employee who they probably should have terminated access, earlier on. Also, what is my, data validation process? Do I have a data validation process? Do I, when I get data from from my different data sources and via these feeds, do I make sure that the right number of impressions that I have in my that I have in my BI tool equal to the same amount that is in my platform? And you might say, well, sure, that should equal out, right? But unfortunately, the intermediary of getting the data from point A to point B is very different for a lot of these different platforms. And and there's also different ways via the APIs that are not very much the same as when you are interfacing with the GUI in the front end. So it's very important to do data validation, as well. Another example that I'll talk about is, I say, naming conventions as well. So we've worked with some large media companies and agencies, when we talk about their, in helping with their campaign taxonomies and verifying with metadata. Is that standard across my platforms? So I can get a whole view of, let's say, of my different, if I'm, going, if I have mobile versus desktop as well, for example. Is my database, my metadata consistent across, which is very, very important. So, and then one of the major things to do is, how do I plan for this? How do I then create, what do I then create in order to help my organization plan for it? The roadmap is very, very important. But what should it contain, and what should we have? Well, every one of those things that I mentioned before in steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 should be part of the roadmap that I'm doing. You should set up a roadmap of what I should be accomplishing in my first year of my program. You should also have a way of setting up goals. How many of these different tasks and accomplishments did I complete at the end of my year or my cycle? As well. And then using this as a gauge for how you then prepare for the next year as well. And I know I'm kind of alluding to this, uh, but this is very much a cycle as well. This is not a kind of one and done type of thing. The inventory that is something that you would check on a quarterly basis. If you have time, if you know that something has been added to or needs to be added to your inventory, add it right then and there. This should be something that's a active process. What about reviewing processes and procedures? These should be reviewed on a yearly cadence so that they're up to date. Things change, business changes, and you may have naming conventions that change. Issues with privacy may change. I may have different procedures. I need to update my data validation procedures because the first time I did it, we were in one frame of mind, but now, we realize that we can have a better procedure for doing that. Realizing that we need to start, we need to start at a crawl before we can actually run. So, and then also there's a process of, updating, these processes and procedures as well, happening on a regular cadence too. So, so I think Andrew has posted a question, that we, accept questions. One thing that I will say that, I believe that we'll be, giving out this presentation. Take a look at the different items that you can do, and go through. Start with the 1 to 5 items. Start taking a look at the roles and responsibilities. And I think we do have a question here. Can you describe roles and responsibilities for a beginner who wants to enter this industry? So I would say that someone who wants to do data management and governance is, I would have to say, part of the role is being kind of sort of tenacious and realizing that this is a recurring process. Realizing that, person in this role who's beginning it in their organization, this is not their only job that they're going to do, but uh, the first year is going to be mostly planning and getting up to speed. And then the next subsequent year is taking a look at what are the other additional items I wasn't able to do in my first year. Can I add them on to this year in order to um, complete the focus and complete the processes that I have now in place. All right. Oh, and another question here. I was wondering, should I read the questions out loud?
Yeah, Alan, I could read them
Okay.
to you. So the question we have is,
Yeah.
what if an organization doesn't have bandwidth to have to have resources to manage the entire process? Is there any simpler way to achieve data governance? Is basically the general question there.
Yeah. I would say, well, one of the simple solutions is to reach out to us and we can help you, develop these programs and help run them for you. So if your organization doesn't have the bandwidth to do that, please reach out to us as well. I don't know, Adam, if they will have my email address at the end, but definitely, reach out to me if you have any questions about, starting up a program in your organization. But I think it's starting out with some basics. Okay, so I think that I'm wondering if you can still see my screen. But let's go back to these 5 items. I would definitely want to tackle, the first two first, and then doing a, number 3, conducting the data quality assessment, if at all, the first time going around. In a lot of organizations, the IT departments do have their own SOPs. You can tackle your own group's SOPs in the following year, if that's something, and if that's how you want to segment it out. But definitely, rule of thumb always is finding out what what is it that I need to manage. What is the landscape of what do I have? And then once you know what you have and how much you have, then it becomes like, oh, okay, well, these are the things that are important for me that I then need to tackle in my program.
Okay, so next question, how do you market data governance to senior execs who struggle to engage with governance and security?
Got it. That's an excellent question. I think that it has to do with the strategy that gets developed that needs to align with the company's, with their, with their go-to-market strategy and also the overall company strategy. How does data governance and data management get me to ROI? How do I can then become profitable? And having that discussion from that level is very, very important. How does this translate to ROI? So if I understand and I'm able to understand my data and I'm able to manage it better, we can improve, how we use data in our organization and thus improve decision making as well.
Okay, so next question, without getting into sales mode, the question
Yeah.
is, in your experience, should this digital strategy, is it better pitched by internal employees like the analytics team or by external consultants with fresh eyes? So try to be objective there.
Yeah. I really think that it needs to be sponsored by people internally, because even if you do bring in consultants and there's not very much buy-in, it's so much what it wouldn't really matter what the consultants are saying. So there is not, buy-in in the different groups, then it's not going to have any weight. So there needs to be some work done up front to bring people on board and bring people to the table to realize that this is something valuable that we need to do. as well. Not just, I know I gave certain statistics, about like, 80% of the, Gartner saying 80% of these initiatives will fail, is kind of could be kind of a scary number, which means, oh, we got to get started right away. But it's kind of to know like what is important for, what's important for my stakeholders to get their buy-in in order to do a program like this.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add, regardless of who you work with, one thing that I've noticed having done consulting for a large portion of my career is that there is some weird thing where you could tell your company the same thing over and over and over again, and they'll ignore it. And then you pay some outside person to say the same exact thing, and suddenly, all of a sudden, it becomes like the highest priority thing that organizations have to do. So I don't quite understand that
Yeah, it's the
phenomenon,
psychological.
but
Yeah,
yeah, it does. I
yeah,
have
it's
seen that out there.
yeah, it's psychological of where they're putting the figure of authority. Where that figure of authority is. If somebody's projecting the figure of authority onto the consultant, well, that's good. That's good. That's good for the consultant in order to get it on. But then when the consultant has that message and is conveying that message to the client, does the client, it's several certain things that going through the client's mind is that, okay, well, can I do this myself? Do I need to hire other people? If I can do this myself, how long is it going to take for me to implement? Where am I going to get the benefits out of it? At what term, at what price?
Yeah. And Chris is commenting that an expert is anyone who's more than 50 miles away with a briefcase. So maybe the answer is to just take a member of your team and dress them up in a costume, bring them in as a consultant to say the same thing, and then move on. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, and I know we're kind of like, joking about this, but it is hard to start these programs, in some companies because it's like uh, doing this kind of management is like you don't want this management, and I'm going to say this, you don't want this kind of governance and management to be a hindrance. Okay, that's not what this should be. If there's some inkling that this is becoming a hindrance to how the business is being run, you need to stop. You need to stop and think, no, we need to be flexible. We need to be agile. Okay. This is not to stop anything. This is to start things. This is to open up ideas and open up the gates of this is the data we have, and this is maybe how we should be using it better in our organization.
okay, one last question. Can you share tips for creating a roadmap that helps governance experts stay out of the weeds? I see a lot of wheel spinning over issues like naming conventions.
Yes. I would say that, there's always a version one of these different things. Uh, People start to, get into kind of like a tailspin when they overthink certain things. When they start like thinking, do I have all of my naming conventions? Do I have all of my procedures? Are they all perfect? And as I was like saying before, this is an iterative process. This is you're going to be reviewing these every year. And a lot of these things need yearly cadence. The data the data quality assessment will be kind of done on a quarterly assessment basis because it should be quick for you to know at a certain time what data you have. But it's very important that you start because you need to start somewhere and do a version one of it, knowing that in the future, Rome wasn't built in a day, knowing that things will change as my business changes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, well, thank you all for joining. And Alan, thank you so much for sharing some tips on data management and data governance. We will see everyone again next week. Thanks so much.